good afternoon everybody. Good afternoon sir, good afternoon classmates. So this is our report, Models and Theories of Educational Leadership by Carissa Lazo and Ramos Mark Anthony. Types of Educational Leadership. First one is the servant leadership. Servant leadership takes the focus from the end goal to the people who are being led. There is no sense of self-interest on the part of the leader, who steps back and supports only the interests of the followers. Guidance, empowerment, and culture of trust are hallmarks of this style of leadership. A servant leader puts complete trust in the process and in his or her followers, assuming that those within the organization will align with its goals. So, the primary issue with the servant leader is that it's not viable on organization level, in large part because it does not keep its eye on the prize. With the focus being so entirely upon the needs of the people within the organization, the goal of the organization is nearly completely lost and therefore not attained. Education happens in the real world. So yun nga, where unfortunately people have shortcomings and quite often need guidance in order to get things going in the right direction. So that's servant leadership. Next is the transactional leadership. Give and take is the hallmark of transactional leadership. It is indeed modeled just like a business transaction. Of course, the employer or employee's relationship is largely transactional as is. Employers need work done and employees do that work in exchange for money. In education, there is often more at stake for employees who quite often understand their jobs to be more than just simple exchange of service for money, rather than their higher purpose money, or money is therefore not the motivating factor. So next is the emotional leadership, where transactional leadership was concerned primarily with the exchange of goods and services. Emotional leadership is concerned with the feelings and motivations of followers. It takes the focus completely to the other side of this spectrum, demanding that leaders to be emotionally intelligent themselves and then to motivate through the use of that emotional intelligence. So, emotional leadership and transformational leadership have a great deal in common with each other. With emotional leadership, the leader taps into their emotional center in order to find the path to guiding their followers or to guide their followers. People sometimes argue that transformational leadership requires that the same level of influence over emotion. However, there is a fundamental difference in the two, that the transformational leadership is by necessity or rational process rather than an emotional one. So that's emotional leadership. Next is the transformational leadership. Transformational leadership takes from each of the other kinds of leadership its best qualities and then uses those, along with a deep sense of shared purpose, to motivate subordinates, while the other forms of leadership focus on one singular aspect or another. Transformational leadership takes a broad view of the issue surrounding leadership and then uses those as the driving force for meeting the overall goals of the organization. For education, in particular, transformational leadership offers the best of everything, from tapping into the emotions of workers to offering the compensatory core that is the case for all forms of business, to guiding from a place of support. So, however, since transformational leadership is informed by all of these various types of leadership, it's always a good idea for leaders to learn more about these other styles. A deeper understanding of these forms, so as to offer those in whose service they are best support and guidance possible. So that is or that are the four types of educational leadership theories: servant leadership, the transactional leadership, the emotional leadership, and transformational leadership.
Hello, good afternoon. Now I am tasked to talk about the theories and models of educational leadership. The key to an effective academic institution is to have a great educational leader in charge. Leadership is the ability to create unified visions among followers. They set goals, develops different strategies to meet the desired accomplishments and motive. They encourage and serve as a positive and ethical example to others, wherein a good educational leader understands what needs to get done to improve academic conditions and the student's experience. However, various theories of leadership styles exist in education which determine the relationship the leader has with others as well as how he goes about leading. And educational theories first is the facilitative leadership. If we say facilitative leadership, it does not adhere to the traditional top down or hierarchical structure from top to bottom, where decisions are made solely at the higher level. Rather, a facilitative leader uses a collective approach. That means everybody is involved in decision making that solicits the input and opinion of others so that the best overall improvements can be made. If we say facilitative leaders, they are interested in involving others, which is a positive leadership trait in the educational field because it encourages innovation and independence from teachers and other school administrators. It's not just only the head who is in charge of decisions making. This collective decision-making model employed by facilitative leaders helps the educational system make progress because the group input allows leaders to understand and needs of student, classroom, and the communities. The second educational leadership theory is the transformational leadership. In this education system, many leaders use a transformational leadership style to build up the confidence of followers as the school works through organizational or a systematic changes. Since the educational system is always reorganizing and developing, transformational leaders are ideal for helping teachers, students, parents, faculty, and communities grasp a new vision and be led and motivated. Wherein educational leaders who use a transformational style have a way of communicating with others, getting the masses on board with a unified vision and helping people see the benefits of outcome through changes. That means leadership here, they are transforming one another. Next is the instructional leadership, wherein these educational leaders are concerned with improving curriculum, monitoring students' behavior in the classrooms, evaluating student test scores, improving the work of teacher, and closely supervising school academic progress. These leaders work closely with teachers to identify weak areas that needs improvements and to develop classroom standards to student behaviors, the academic standing. This style of leadership is often employed in schools that have fallen behind academically or experiencing behavioral problems among the student. And fourth and last educational leadership theory is the administrative leadership, wherein administrative leadership is a type of leadership theory that is focused on administrative policy, bureaucracy, accountability, and school procedures. This leadership style is important. Why? It's important but cannot stand alone successfully in the educational world since it does not typically concentrate enough on student and teacher well-being. These leaders are less invested in personal relationships unlike transformational leaders and are more concerned with following rules and maintaining orders, and that is administrative leadership. Again, the four types of educational leadership, we have the facilitative, the transformational, the instructional, and the administrative leadership.
So next to tackle is after the types of educational leadership theories, let's move on to the types of leadership in school administration. So the school administrator is the linchpin of success in the educational environment. It is difficult to determine which leadership style or combination of styles is most effective in education. Leadership styles and leadership theories vary, intersect, and overlap. The manifestation of a particular leadership style and its effectiveness is often determined by the leadership quantities of the leader, the type of organization, and or the goal of the organization. So, in the types of leadership, transactional leadership, transformational leadership, shared leadership, classical leadership, and many others have been studied and defined to develop a better understanding of effective leadership. First one is the administrative leadership. Administrative leadership is a leadership style that focuses on accountability, bureaucracy management, and enforcing rules, procedural regulations, and administrative course. In this age of accountability, it is easy to understand how an administrator might rely heavily on this leadership style. So, school administrators are held accountable for the academic and behavioral climate of the school and also the impact that those concepts have on the performance of the school as a whole. So, yan, yung administrative leadership. Next is transactional leadership. Instructional leadership. Instructional leadership is manifested by a principal whose actions are directed at the ultimate goals of student growth, high expectations, and academic excellence. This type of leadership is focused on curriculum development and alignment, monitoring, and evaluating teachers, and the allocation of resources for the optimal instruction. So, in this type of leadership, the success of this type of leadership is measured solely on the instructional growth and health of the school. So, next is shared leadership. What is shared leadership? Shared leadership is an informational leadership style that is based on the embodiment of ownership, learning, and sharing, and is sometimes aligned in the theory with democratic leadership. The success of this type of leadership hinges on the ability of the leader to establish a cohesiveness among human resources, personnel, and to get them to accept being a part of the leadership ring. So, the underlying theory, that is the collaborative leadership that uses all available human resources and engages shared perspective and solution, and is more comprehensive, there, is therefore more effective. So this is more effective than the other types of leadership. The next one, or the last one, is classical leadership. Classical leadership, in contrast to shared leadership, classical leadership is more formal and is hierarchical in design. There exists a distinct division between leaders and followers. These leaders lead and expect others to follow. They are goal-oriented, concern themselves with high productivity, and focus on engaging those in their charge to the organizational goal. So that are the four types of leadership in school administration: the administrative leadership, the instructional leadership, the shared leadership, and last, the classical leadership.
As we are done with the different types of leadership in school administration, we are done also with the different types of educational leadership theories. Now we are going to the problems of educational administration, wherein problems are part of educational administrations. Wala namang administrations na wala sigurong problema, di ba? So, wherein problems of educational administrations are the educational system will not function adhesively with the weak school administration. No nakapsot ko di school administration, han kanong ag-function nga nasaya at ajay educational system. Effective administration begins with leaders who know how to motivate teachers and students. Good administration also know how to enlist the help to the community in improving schools for all concerned. If administration allows personal relationships or ambition to dictate their decisions, the school environment will become one of distrust. The lack of unity and teamwork will surely result a low student achievement. First problem is about leadership. problem in educational administration stem from lack of leadership. School administration officials are usually former teachers or principals who have worked hard to qualify for their positions and have many years of experiences. They work hard for it, but experience that not necessarily not does not necessarily qualify one to be a leader. Of course, to be a leader, you should know your doings, you should know your priorities. As an educational administrator, you must adhere to different policies, even if they do not personally agree with them. If exceptions are made, they are done so with this stated purpose of serving a higher good. Good leaders compromise without sacrificing the integrity of the system. Of course, as a leadership, you will think first about your school, about your learners, about your administrations. Next, communication. Weak communication is one of the best problem of school administration. Why? Confusion results when administration do not have regular open lines of communications with their teaching staff or with their superiors. Because because of overwhelming responsibilities, principals tend to become less accessible, which leads to less face-to-face interaction, and that's very wrong. It's important for the teacher and the students. Instead, issues usually are addressed in general meetings because of time constraint. Faculty tend to perceive that they are being preached at instead of involved with meaningful discourse. This method of non-effective, if not effective with the students in the classroom, administrators cannot expect that it will work with their staff. Next problem is the disconnect. The, t- the teach student classroom environment is relatively sheltered. The relationship is a close one that is nurtured by everyday interaction. A disconnect can result when a similar level of familiarity between teachers, principals, and district leaders is not maintained. This causes a respectfulness on the part of the this causes resentfulness on the part of the teachers who perceive a lack of concern and distorted priorities on the part of their superiors. When teachers become indignant, their performance suffers along with the students' achievements. This disconnect will also be felt in the community. In the school district is seen as an adversarial enterprise. Second to the last is the partiality. This is the major problem can occur in schools when certain teacher, parent, or the community leaders are shown favoritism based on their degree of influence or relationship with the administrators. Gaputan na baknangon, gapu siguro ta anak ti officialson, gaputan na donaton, we have favoritisms and that's very wrong. Many times, this bias is not intentional. It is easier to placate rather than spend a lot of time in a battle of the wills with someone who is known to be vocal about his discontent or who threatens to call district and state education leaders. An effective administrator will not make decisions based on what is deemed to be the best for the student. The will stand firm in her position as an advocate for children. And last problem is politics, wherein politics has been part of the history. wherein schools that have elected leaders and school boards, competition and fierce ambition can cause a problem with these concerns override the main purpose of education. Principals who prefer one candidate over another may try to persuade teachers to be like-minded. Some candidates may use low test score and high dropouts rate as a weapon to force current leaders out of their positions, thereby casting the district into a negative light. If communities do not see their educational leaders as a people of integrity, the motivation to participate in school improvement projects and diminish thereby negatively affect the future of their children's education. Again, those are the problems in educational administrations. First, leadership. We should have a clear communication. We should connect to each other to prevent disconnect. We have also partially end the politics. And that ends our discussion. Thank you. Goodbye.